Most of us as women think we've chosen the wrong men because we just haven't found the right one. But the truth is, many of us have chosen partners based on emotional conditioning we didn't even realize we had. Your attraction patterns are not random. And you know this is the case when you have repeated scenarios. It's like you're essentially dating the same type of energy, but it's a different face, a different place, a different time. The circumstances may be slightly different, but the emotional outcomes are still the same. You still end up in the same no good dead end relationships, or you're in the same story of someone cheating on you, or you're in the same story of ending up with someone who cannot reciprocate what you give in a relationship, whether that's emotional or financial or just time. It's not given back to you. It's like if you have the same story, you have to know based on that alone that none of this is by chance. It's actually, and this kind of sounds a little daunting to say, but it's actually by design, which, when you think about it, on the other side of the same token, can be freeing, because if our attraction patterns aren't random and we're being drawn to certain people in certain places and certain experiences that have seemingly not served us but have done the complete opposite, then the same is true when the good stuff and the positive things happen continuously and we're drawn to those things. And furthermore, you can also think about it like this. Attraction patterns aren't random because, typically speaking, most of us have a type, or a lot of women have a type. You like a man that's taller than you. You like a man that makes a certain kind of money. You like a man who's from a certain place. You like a man who does certain things. That's not random. You don't typically go for the person that's outside of the curated box that you have as far as what you think is attractive. And so the outcomes and the patterns that we experience in relationships as women, whether we like them or not, that's the crazy part about it, whether we like the patterns and the outcomes or not, they're not random, they're by design. And I say that because it's an opportunity for us to recognize the inherent power that we're operating in that we're not even aware of. Power being emotion. We don't realize that emotion is often our superpower. Emotions are often the magic behind the manifestation and the turning of events in our lives, the things it is that we say we want or that we're going to do. There's often an emotion that's tied to the conception of a thought. They are often the dynamite that enacts a thing into the physical. So if we typically feel anxious, or we confuse anxiety with excitement, we will typically be drawn to those people or those men who make us feel giddy, who do something, who create a spark within us. And we think, oh, this is chemistry, this is attraction, not knowing that that emotion is what is driving the pattern of attraction, not the understanding of character and the vetting of someone's energy and their history to know what they're actually going to be and do when it comes to you. And with that being said, the second point I want to make is our nervous systems are often drawn to what's familiar, not necessarily what's healthy. Let me explain. Most of what we have become accustomed to starts way back during our formative years of childhood. So if we grew up in emotionally inconsistent or unstable or volatile environments, that becomes our norm. I know for me growing up, I was accustomed to one parent who was absentee and another who was emotionally volatile at times. I was wired to be the girl who walked on eggshells, or to create the peace and the stability and the comfort in the home environment. I was naturally drawn to the men who seemed the most volatile. or the men who seem the most inconsistent. I wanted to prove how consistent I could be to bring them in to be consistent with me. I was constantly trying to persuade someone that I could overcome the volatility because that's all I'd known since childhood. Does that resonate with anyone? Or make sense of how our nervous systems can be wired for dysfunction and things that are familiar, even if they're not healthy and what we actually desire, deserve, which is healthy, stable, and aligned love. Another example of this is love needing to be earned. And so sometimes we can do all the things just to try to get our person's attention. Well, these are things we often did in adolescence or in childhood, whether that was in school, trying to be the straight A student, trying to make sure that we dotted every I and crossed every T so that we would have our parents' approval or our teacher's approval or whoever's approval. We learned that if we could people please, then we could be accepted, we would be safe. And oftentimes we carry those same modes of being into our relationships because how we do one thing is how we do everything. Many of us have unknowingly chased emotional activation over emotional safety. I didn't have a concept of what that was or the difference between the two. And I'll explain it like this. Emotional activation is we're often looking for a charge, whether that's excitement, like I mentioned earlier, being giddy, feeling a sexual compulsion towards someone, being turned on. We're looking more for that more than emotional safety and sobriety. We're often not looking for those things in the beginning. We're looking for the complete opposite. We want the juice, we want the spice, we want the chemistry, we want the flame, we want fireworks. Not realizing that most of the time, fireworks can cause things to blow up. Right? When we value emotional activation over emotional safety, what we often get is volatility. And the same can be said when it's the opposite. When someone is emotional calm and they're grounded and they're stable, we can feel like, well, this person just isn't invested. For those of us who have not emotionally regulated like we need to, prime example, when I first married my husband, I was highly emotionally unregulated, very reactive, and I was very aware of this, but I didn't understand the perspective that he was coming from at the time. I thought his inability or unwillingness to turn up with me or to get excited or riled up or angry over the things that would make me angry meant that he couldn't feel or he didn't care or he wasn't as invested or passionate about things as I was. And what I did not understand was he valued his peace more than anything. I valued being right and being heard and being understood more than anything. I was the epitome of being in emotional activation. So when someone is actually calm and emotionally present and grounded and stable and centered, there's no chaos for the nervous system to attach itself to. It's like, well, what are we doing here? There's nothing to talk about if we're not arguing. That sounds really toxic. But that's how a lot of times it is. And I am happy to say that a lot has changed since then. And let that be consolation that these patterns can change. And I'm a living witness of it. And someone needs to hear that. You are not doomed to repeat unhealthy relationships forever. But healing relationship patterns requires much deeper work than simply trying harder to choose better. This is exactly why I created my course, Break the Pattern of Choosing Wrong Men. Because most of us women were never taught how deeply emotional conditioning influences and impacts relationship choices, patterns, and outcomes. To get the course and access to my new community for group support, to understand what specifically has been driving your relationship patterns, and more importantly, how to stop it, the link for that is in the description box below. And let me know how this hits for you in the comments when you're done with that, you may want to watch this video right here. I'll see you in the next one.